The problem with working at an upscale gallery in the financial district is that you see things you're not supposed to see. I've learned this lesson 100 times over, mostly by keeping my mouth shut, my head down, and my eyes carefully averted from the men in tailored suits, who drift through our exhibition spaces like they own the marble beneath their feet. They do own it. Or at least, people like them do. The kind of people who appear in criminal conspiracy documentaries and courtroom sketches, their faces pixelated or replaced with silhouettes, their names whispered like curses. Tonight, I'm catalog checking in the back storage room when I hear the commotion. Our gallery, Meridian Contemporary, is hosting a private viewing for a collection of Renaissance paintings. The kind of event where security is tighter than airport screening, where I'm only allowed to be here because I'm cataloging inventory and technically invisible to the important people upstairs. The kind of event where I've learned never to ask questions about who's bidding or what they're really after. But something feels different tonight. The air tastes like static electricity and danger. I'm standing on a ladder, organizing frames in alphabetical order, because chaos offends me on a cellular level when I hear the elevator doors open on the floor above. Heavy footsteps, multiple voices, low and controlled. The kind of movement that belongs to men who don't walk into rooms. They occupy them. My hands freeze mid-reach. I know I should stay in storage. I know the protocol, but curiosity is a poison I've never learned to resist. So I climb down from the ladder, brush dust from my black dress pants, and do what I always do when something feels like it's about to change my life. I move toward it. The viewing floor is dimly lit, with track lighting casting warm gold on the painted faces of Renaissance royalty. I slip through the employee entrance, staying in shadow, letting the thick velvet curtain that separates the back hallway from the showroom hide most of me. Just my face and shoulders are visible, just enough to observe without being observed. There are 5 men. 4 of them look like security, broad-shouldered, cold-eyed, the kind of men whose hands rest near their jackets with practiced ease. But the fifth one is different. He stands at the center of the room, studying a portrait of a Medici duchess with the intensity of someone trying to decode her secrets. He's tall, devastatingly tall, with dark hair that looks like it hasn't seen a comb in hours, and a jaw that could cut glass. His suit is charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it looks like it was painted onto his body. And his hands, God. His hands are large and scarred, the kind of hands that have done terrible things, and never apologized for it. I should look away. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to retreat back into the storage room, lock the door, and pretend I never saw him. Because there's something about him that feels like danger liquefied and poured into human form. Something that makes the hair on my arms stand on end and my breathing shallow. But then he turns, and he sees me. Our eyes meet across the darkened gallery, and it's like touching a live wire. His eyes are slate gray, cold, calculating, infinitely dangerous. And when they lock onto mine, I feel something shift in my chest. Something fundamental, something irreversible. His gaze doesn't slide away like normal people's eyes do. It doesn't check me over and dismiss me. It pins me, holds me, burns me. I should move. I should disappear. But my legs have forgotten their purpose. Vittorio, one of the security men, says a warning in his tone. We should move to the private viewing room. The painting's ready. The man doesn't respond. He's still looking at me, and I'm still frozen, and the space between us feels like it's contracting, like gravity itself is pulling me toward him. Sir, another man says, more urgently, slowly, so slowly, I can feel each passing second like a heartbeat. Vittorio's lips curve into a smile. It's not a warm smile. It's the kind of smile that makes you understand, on a primal level, that this person could destroy you and sleep soundly afterward. Who is she? His voice is low, accented Italian wrapped around each word like silk around a knife. He doesn't wait for an answer from his men. Instead, he steps forward, and his entire security detail tenses, hands moving toward their jackets in unison, before he raises a single hand, a gesture so small and controlled it might as well be a gunshot. They stop. He walks toward me, and I finally find my legs. I step backward, toward the curtain, toward safety, but I'm not fast enough. Before I can retreat fully, he's there, at the edge of the velvet divide, and the way he's looking at me makes it clear that he could stop me if he wanted to, that I'm not running because he hasn't decided yet whether to let me. What's your name? He asks, and his accent makes it sound like a threat and a caress simultaneously. I work here. I manage, which is possibly the least helpful response I could have given. His smile deepens. I didn't ask where you work. I asked your name. The problem is, Somewhere in the panic thrumming through my veins, there's something else. Something dark and responding to the darkness in him. Something that recognizes him as dangerous and doesn't care. Doesn't want to care. Wants to step closer instead of away. Julia, I hear myself say. It's the truth, my name is Julia Marchetti and I have no idea why I gave it to him. Julia. He rolls the name around his mouth like he's tasting expensive wine. Where are you from, Julia? Sicily, I answer, though I haven't lived there in 10 years. The accent still clings to me though, especially when I'm terrified, which is convenient because he clearly finds it interesting. His eyes narrow slightly. A Sicilian girl in the city, working in galleries. That's either very safe or very dangerous. He steps closer, close enough that I can smell him expensive cologne and something else, something dark and smoky, like old money and gunpowder. I'm guessing you're the type to make dangerous choices. I should get back to work, I say, and it's the first lie I've told him. You should, he agrees, but he doesn't move. Neither do I. But you won't. And he's right. Even as every rational part of my brain is screaming at me that this man is trouble, that he's the kind of trouble that ruins lives and doesn't look back, I'm not moving. I'm standing in this gallery, with this stranger whose gray eyes are pulling me into something I don't understand. And I'm not running. One of his men clears his throat, a warning. Vittorio's expression hardens slightly, like he's been pulled back to reality by a physical force. He steps back, and immediately I can breathe again, though my heart is still racing like I've just run a marathon. Have a good evening, Julia, he says, and there's a promise in it. A threat, a question. He turns and walks back toward his security team, toward the private viewing room where the real bidding is about to happen, where decisions are made that affect the city, where men like him negotiate over more than just paintings. I stand frozen in the doorway, my hand shaking as I grip the velvet curtain, and I know with the kind of knowledge that sits in your bones and won't be dislodged that my ordinary life just ended. That man, whoever he is, has marked me as something. Prey, perhaps. Or maybe something more dangerous. A choice. And I have no idea which one terrifies me more. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I lie in my tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn, all exposed brick and leaking radiators, and dreams of a life that doesn't feel like drowning, and I think about gray eyes and danger and the way a stranger's name sounds like sin. By morning, I've convinced myself it was nothing. A momentary encounter. A man who looked at me with mild interest and moved on. I'm a gallery girl, invisible in my black dress and subtle makeup, the kind of woman men forget before they reach the elevator. By noon, I'm Googling his name. Vittorio isn't much to work with, but Meridian's client list has institutional memory, and one call to Patricia in administration, with a careful excuse about invoice verification, gives me a hint. The private bidder tonight. Italian name. Very exclusive. I find him on the third search result. Vittorio Marchese, 34 years old. Businessman. According to the society pages, though the word is in quotes, and the articles are careful to avoid saying exactly what kind of business, there are photos. Him at charity galas, standing beside politicians and celebrities, always with the same cold expression, always surrounded by the same steel-eyed men. Him getting out of a black Maserati outside of downtown nightclubs. Him in a grayscale photo from what looks like a courthouse, face half obscured, but those eyes unmistakable. Then I find the Reddit thread. It's in one of those true crime forums, buried 6 posts deep in a discussion about organized crime families in the Northeast. Someone's mentioned that the Marchese family, Sicilian dynasty, moved to New York 3 generations ago, is suspected of everything from racketeering to contract killing, though proving it is impossible because they're too careful, too insulated, too powerful. The poster types. Vittorio Marchese is the current boss. They say he's ruthless. They say he'd kill his own mother if it benefited the family. No one's ever moved against him and lived to tell about it. He's like a ghost, always connected, never implicated. The guy's either a genius or genuinely inhuman. I close the laptop. My hands are shaking. This is worse than danger. This is confirmation that the feeling I had in that gallery, that sense of standing at the edge of a cliff, was accurate. That the man who looked at me like I was something he wanted to possess is exactly as dangerous as every instinct screamed at me. And the problem is, knowing that doesn't make me want to stay away. It makes me want to look again. I tell myself it's natural curiosity. I tell myself everyone has a morbid fascination with things that could hurt them. I tell myself that looking is harmless. It's not like I'm going to encounter him again. And even if I did, he'd have forgotten me by now. That moment of attention was probably just a moment of boredom in his dangerous life. A minor distraction quickly discarded. It's a nice story. A comforting lie, but I know better. I know because of what happens 3 days later. I'm leaving the gallery at 7 p.m. on a Thursday later than usual, because I was organizing the storage room when I noticed the black Maserati parked across the street. The same one from the photos. I know this is coincidence. I tell myself it's coincidence. I walk the other direction anyway, toward the subway, toward the safety of crowds and public transportation, and the illusion that I'm not being watched. The car follows me, not aggressively. Just there. 2 cars behind, moving when I move, waiting when I stop. By the time I reach the subway entrance, I'm certain someone is following me, and I have a terrible, thrilling, absolutely terrible feeling about who it is. I don't go down the stairs. Instead, I turn around and walk back toward the car, which is probably the most irrational thing I've ever done, and that's saying something. As I approach, the window rolls down, and there he is, Vittorio Marchesi, in the driver's seat of a car that probably costs more than my annual salary, looking like he's been waiting for exactly this moment. "Get in," he says. "It's not a request." "I don't think that's a good idea," I say, which is possibly the most accurate statement I've ever made. "I didn't ask if you thought it was a good idea. I asked you to get in the car, Julia." The way he says my name like it belongs to him, like he's already decided my future, makes my stomach flip. It's terrifying. It's intoxicating. It's the kind of feeling that gets people killed or transformed into versions of themselves they didn't recognize. "If I do this, I'm going to regret it," I say. "Probably," he agrees. "Get in the car anyway." And I do. God help me, I do. The interior smells like leather, and him that dark, dangerous scent from the gallery. The seats are heated. The stereo is playing something in Italian, something operatic and haunting. He doesn't speak as he pulls into traffic, and I don't either, because there are no words for this, no language for the way my heart is pounding or the way my entire body is vibrating with the awareness of his proximity. "Why are you following me?" I finally ask. "Because you interested me," he says, not taking his eyes off the road. His hands are steady on the steering wheel, in complete control, just like everything else about him. And when I'm interested in something, I find out more about it. "You could have just asked." He glances at me then, and his smile is sharp enough to draw blood. "Would you have answered?" "I wouldn't have. We both know it. My family does business with your gallery," he continues, turning the car toward the river. "They've been bidding on that Medici collection for months, but until 3 days ago, the person I remember from that exhibition is a girl in the shadows who moves like she's learned how to be invisible. A girl with Sicilian eyes and a look like she knows secrets she shouldn't." "I don't know anything," I say. "No," he agrees. "You don't, but you will." The car stops in a parking lot overlooking the East River. The city lights reflect off the water like scattered diamonds, and for a moment, the beauty of it overwhelms the fear. He turns to face me fully, his arm resting on the steering wheel, his gray eyes illuminated by dashboard light. "My name is Vittorio," he says, as if I don't already know. "And I have a proposition for you. Julia, if it involves anything illegal." "Everything I do is illegal," he interrupts. "But this particular proposition is going to sound very innocent. I need someone at the gallery, someone who watches, who listens, who reports back to me, someone with access to client lists and shipping manifests and information about what people in this city are buying and selling." My blood goes cold. "You want me to spy for you?" "I want you to help me," he corrects. "There's a difference. Help me, and I promise you'll be protected. Refuse me, and I promise you'll regret it in ways you can't imagine." He reaches over, and his fingers brush a strand of hair away from my face, and the touch is so gentle, it's almost more terrifying than if he'd threatened me outright. "What's it going to be, Julia?" I should say no. Every part of me that still has survival instinct is screaming at me to refuse. But as I look into those gray eyes, into the darkness and the danger and the strange, terrible honesty of them, I realize I've already made my choice. I made it the moment he smiled at me in that gallery. "What do I have to do?" I hear myself ask. And that's when everything changes. 3 weeks of playing spy is easier than I expect and infinitely more corrupting. At first, the tasks are small, unremarkable. Vittorio asks me to note which collectors are liquidating assets, a sign of financial trouble, or relocation. He wants to know when certain buyers from overseas are visiting the gallery. He wants copies of invoices for shipments to specific addresses. Nothing that feels like betrayal. Everything feels like survival. I tell myself I'm not actually doing anything wrong. I'm just reporting on publicly available information. I'm just being observant. I'm just lying to myself with the precision of someone who's already decided to sell their soul but wants to wait until they've been paid first. What I don't expect is how much I enjoy it. There's a thrill to the secret, to having a phone that isn't my phone, a number that only he has, a world that exists in whispered conversations and encrypted messages, to knowing that somewhere out there, this dangerous man is thinking about me, asking about me, arranging his world with me in it. What I really don't expect is what happens when he actually comes to see me. It's a Friday evening, and I'm meeting him at a restaurant in the meatpacking district. One of those places where the clientele is carefully curated and security is invisible but absolute. He's already there when I arrive, sitting in a private booth at the back, a glass of wine waiting for me. "You're late," he says, not bothering with a greeting. "I had to change," I tell him, which is true. I've gone through 4 outfits in my apartment, trying to decide what one wears when meeting an organized crime boss for the first time since becoming his unwilling partner in espionage. I finally settled on a deep burgundy dress, elegant but not desperate, with a neckline that doesn't promise anything but suggests possibilities. He studies me like he's assessing a piece of art for purchase. His gray eyes move from my face down my body and back again, and I feel that electric pull again, the one that makes me forget that this is dangerous and complicated and morally indefensible. "You look beautiful," he says. And it doesn't sound like a compliment. It sounds like an observation about something that belongs to him. "Thank you," I say, sitting across from him. There's a waiter hovering, materializing, and vanishing with precise timing, and suddenly there's food in front of me. Apparently, I'm not ordering. Apparently, he decided what I wanted. "You've been doing well," he says, cutting into his steak with precise economical movements. "The information you've provided has been useful." "I'm glad," I say, which is true and also a lie, because every piece of information I've handed over has felt like a small betrayal, and the fact that I don't hate myself for it anymore is the most terrifying development of all. "Tell me about yourself," he says. "The real things, not the biography I already know. The things that made you into the kind of girl who accepts proposals from dangerous men." I should deflect. I should maintain whatever professional distance exists between us. But I'm wine drunk on his attention, and I want him to know me. I want him to understand why I'm here. I moved here 10 years ago because I couldn't stay in Sicily. My family is not kind, and I wanted to make my own choices. Be my own person. I pause, which is ironic, considering I'm now making choices because you're forcing me to. "I'm not forcing you," he says, and he sounds genuinely offended by the suggestion. "I'm giving you an opportunity." That's different. It's coercion with better presentation. His smile is slow and genuine, and it transforms his face, softens something at the edges. Reminds me that under all the danger, there's still a human being, possibly a human being who's done terrible things, but human nonetheless. "I like that you're honest. Most people lie to me." He sets down his knife and fork and leans back in his chair. "Do you know what I do, Julia? What my business actually is?" The smart answer is no. The safe answer is to say, I don't want to know. But something has shifted between us, and I find myself saying, "You take things, money, information, whatever you want, and anyone who gets in your way disappears." He nods like I've passed a test. More or less. The family business is old money and new crimes. Racketeering, loan sharking, some drug trade enough to diversify, but mostly, we deal in information and leverage. We know what people want, and we provide it. We know what people are afraid of, and we make that fear into leverage. He leans forward, and his voice drops. And when someone tries to move against us, we respond with absolute certainty. "That's not a business, that's extortion. All business is extortion," he says. "Mine is just more honest about it. I should excuse myself. I should stand up and walk out and call the police and tell them everything. Instead, I'm leaning forward too, drawn by the gravity of him, by the power that radiates off his skin like heat. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand exactly what you're agreeing to. Because I want you to make an informed choice about what happens next." He reaches across the table and takes my hand, and the contact is electric. His palm is warm and calloused, the hand of someone who's done violence. "I want you to be very certain before I make you mine." The words hang between us like a threat and a promise. "I'm not yours," I say, but my hand doesn't pull away from his. "No," he agrees. Not yet. He stands, and he pulls me up with him. The restaurant fades away, no one is looking at us. No one would dare, and suddenly we're walking toward the back exit, toward a private car waiting in an alley behind the restaurant. He holds the door open, and I'm stepping inside without decision, like my body knows something my mind is still arguing about. The partition between front and back is opaque, and the moment the door closes, I'm acutely aware of how alone we are, how much power he has, how much I've willingly surrendered it to him. He reaches over and takes my hand again, and this time his thumb traces my palm, slow and deliberate. Every choice you make from this point forward will have consequences, he says softly. Everything we do will change you. I want to make sure you're ready for that. I'm terrified, I whisper. Good, he says, and he leans forward, and his mouth finds mine. The kiss is everything I was afraid of and everything I wanted simultaneously. It's not gentle, it's possessive and demanding, tasting like wine and danger, and the promise that I've just crossed a line I can never walk back across. His hand comes up to cup my face, and I'm drowning in the scent of him, in the feeling of being completely claimed by someone capable of destroying me. When he finally pulls back, I'm trembling. Now you're mine, he says. That wasn't a proposal, Julia. That was a statement of fact. And in that moment, suspended between fear and desire, I realize he's right. Somewhere in the last 3 weeks, I've made a choice that was never really a choice at all. I've surrendered something fundamental. And the worst part is that I'm not sure I want it back. What happens now? I ask. His smile is dark with promise and danger. Now, everything gets more complicated. The Marchese mansion in Brooklyn Heights is a cathedral to old money and older violence. Vittorio stands in his study, mahogany paneled, lined with books he'll never read, filled with whiskey he keeps for guests he doesn't trust, and contemplates the problem that's become his obsession. Julia Marchetti. He knew bringing her into his world was dangerous. That was the appeal. But what he didn't anticipate was how much he'd come to need her. How much having her close, knowing she was watching his city, reporting back to him, would feel like putting down a weight he'd been carrying since he took control of the family business at 25. Vittorio, his second in command, Marco, enters without knocking. They've been together since childhood. Childhood meaning the orphanage they both ended up in before Vittorio's uncle recognized his nephew's potential and brought him into the family. We have a problem with the Colombo crew. They're moving on the docks. Let them move, Vittorio says, swirling his whiskey. We don't need the docks anymore, but I want full surveillance on the gallery. Every shipment that comes through, every person who enters, everyone who works there. I want to know if anyone's paying special attention to Julia. Marco's expression doesn't change, but Vittorio feels the weight of his disapproval. She's a liability. She's an asset. She's a woman who knows too much, and she's not one of ours. Eventually, she'll become a problem. Vittorio sets down his glass, and Marco takes an instinctive step back. This is the thing about power, people respond to it, whether you want them to or not. If she becomes a problem, I'll handle it. Until then, she's under my protection. Anyone who moves against her will understand what that means. He meets Marco's eyes, and he lets him see the full extent of the casual violence beneath the surface. Clear? Crystal. I don't see Vittorio for 4 days after the car ride, and the not seeing becomes its own kind of torture. Every text that arrives on the encrypted phone makes my heart jump. Every email to my work account is analyzed for hidden meaning. I obsessively check the gallery's visitor list, hoping to catch sight of him, and hating myself for hoping. The contradiction of it, wanting to see the man who's basically blackmailed me into espionage, should feel humiliating. It mostly just feels like addiction. On the 5th day, something changes. I'm walking home from the gallery on a Friday evening, when I notice the black SUV pulling up alongside me. The window rolls down, and a man's voice, not Vittorio, says, "Get in. This is probably a bad idea." I'm becoming something of an expert in bad ideas, so I recognize it immediately, but the SUV pulls up next to me again, and this time I see the driver clearly enough to know he's not a threat to me. He's one of Vittorio's men. "Mr. Marchese requests your presence," the driver says formally. "Where?" I ask. "Get in, and you'll find out." So I get in. The car takes me to a warehouse in Williamsburg that should feel abandoned, but clearly isn't. There are security cameras, and at least 4 men I can see through the reinforced windows. The driver escorts me through a side entrance and up a metal staircase to what looks like an office space set up inside the warehouse's upper level. Vittorio is there. But so is someone else, a man in an expensive gray suit with cold, dark eyes, and a face that looks like it was carved from stone by someone angry. "Julia," Vittorio says, standing when I enter. The proprietary way he does it, pulling out a chair next to him. His hand coming to rest on the small of my back makes it clear to everyone present that I belong to him. This is Domenico Russo. He represents the Russo family. Domenico. This is Giulia Marchetti. The way Russo looks at me is predatory and appraising, and I realize I'm suddenly in a room with two men who could end my life with a phone call. The fear is immediate and absolute. "Pretty," Russo says. "You're usually more subtle, Marchese. An open threat in a delicate package." "She's not a threat," Vittorio says, and something in his voice is dangerous. "She's an asset. A Sicilian girl in your pocket," Russo muses. "What are the odds she's not playing you both? What's to stop her from running to Rizzo's crew? They'd pay handsomely for the privilege of using her as leverage against you." I'm about to say something. Protest. Probably uselessly when Vittorio stands. He's taller than Russo. More dangerous. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, which makes it infinitely worse than if he'd shouted. "Giulia will never betray me. Because she understands that betrayal would mean I'd have to hurt her. And she also understands that I would prefer not to hurt her. Those two facts create a unique incentive structure." He looks at me as if confirming something he already knows. "Isn't that right?" I nod, because I do understand. I understand that I'm trapped in a cage that's lined with silk and gunfire. "Besides," Vittorio continues, "she's not playing anyone. She's mine. And if anyone tries to move against her, I'll end them. That's not a threat, Domenico. That's a promise." Russo sits back and studies me with new interest. "You believe him?" It's not a question, but I answer anyway. "Yes." "You should run," Russo says, not unkindly. "She's not going anywhere," Vittorio says, and he pulls me close, his arm around my waist like I'm his to claim in front of the other powerful men in this city. "She's exactly where she wants to be." After Russo leaves, I turn to Vittorio in fury. "You can't just—" "I just did," he interrupts. "And now everyone in the family knows that you're protected. That includes the Russo crew, the Colombo organization, and every other power player from here to Atlantic City. Touching you would mean touching me. It's the best protection I can give you. What you gave me was a public declaration that I'm your—" I can't even finish the sentence. "Mine," he says, and he cups my face in his hands, tilting my head up to look at him. "Yes. Is that a problem? The truth is, it shouldn't be. I should be livid. I should be terrified. But standing in this warehouse, in the arms of a man who just literally threatened to kill anyone who moved against me, I realized that this is what I wanted all along. To belong to something dangerous. To be protected by power, instead of destroyed by it. "No," I whisper. "It's not a problem." He kisses me then, and it's different from the first kiss. This one tastes like possession and promise, like he's marking me as his territory in the city and in his world, and in ways that go so much deeper than geography. When he pulls back, I'm breathless. "There's something you need to know," he says. And his voice is serious in a way I've never heard it before. "Rizzo's crew is planning something. They're moving against my interests, and they're stupid enough to think they can do it without consequences. I need to know if they approach anyone at the gallery. If they try to turn you." "What if they do?" I ask. "Then you tell me, and we handle it, together." The offer is seductive. The idea of not facing dangerous things alone, of having backup, of having someone who would burn the world down to keep me safe. "Okay," I say. "Okay? I'll tell you. About Rizzo. About everything." He smiles, and for a moment, I see the man beneath the power, the boy who probably ended up in an orphanage because the world is cruel, who learned to be more cruel than everyone else just to survive. "Then we're going to be fine," he says. "You and me. We're going to be just fine." But as we leave the warehouse, I catch sight of Marco watching from across the street, his expression dark and unreadable. And I realize that Vittorio is wrong. We're not going to be fine. Everything is about to get very, very complicated. 2 weeks later, the first crack appears in my carefully constructed new life. It's subtle at first. A text from an unknown number asking if I'd be interested in earning extra money for providing discreet information about Marchese operations. I immediately report it to Vittorio, expecting praise for my loyalty, but instead, his response is immediate and terrifying. A single word: handle it. I don't know what handling it means. I learn what it means when I see the news story on Monday morning: a body found in a construction site in Red Hook, identification pending, suspected gang violence. The description matches the number I traced to the phone that sent the message. I don't ask Vittorio if he did it. I already know. Instead, I watch him during one of our rare meetings, coffee at a cafe in Park Slope, him in a tailored suit reading the Times like he's not living in the article, and I understand that the price of his protection is complicity. "You're quiet," he says without looking up from his newspaper. "I'm thinking about the man in Red Hook. Are you upset?" I should be. I should be horrified. But when I examine my feelings, what I find is worse than either of those things. What I find is resignation. "No," I say finally. "I'm afraid of what that means about me." Vittorio sets down his newspaper and looks at me fully. In daylight, his eyes are less gray and more silver, like moonlight on water. Lethal and beautiful. "It means you're learning that this world has rules, and the cost of breaking them is death." He reaches across the table and takes my hand. "It doesn't make you a bad person, Julia. It makes you realistic. That's a very convenient philosophy for a man who murders people. I prefer to think of it as pruning, removing threats, protecting what's mine." His thumb traces circles on my wrist. "I'm protecting you. Everything I do, every person I remove from this equation, is so you can be safe. I didn't ask for your protection." "No, but you're accepting it anyway. You're accepting me, aren't you?" I pull my hand away, unsettled by how desperately I want him to be right. The gallery is asking questions. Why I'm suddenly getting special access to client files. Why I'm always in the back, counting inventory. Elena, one of the senior curators, asked me directly if something strange was going on. "What did you tell her?" "That I wasn't sure what she meant." "Good. We need to move you to a different position, something with more access, but more natural." He sips his coffee. "My family's arranging an acquisition, a painting that's coming through the gallery next month. We need someone positioned as part of the sale team. I'm not important enough to be part of something like that. You will be. I'll make sure of it." He sets down his coffee, and his expression changes, becomes softer, more exposed. "I want you somewhere I can see you, Julia. I want to know you're safe." The longing in his voice is so raw that I'm thrown by it. This is the first moment I've seen him genuinely vulnerable, and it terrifies me more than all his violence does, because vulnerability means he has something to lose. "I'm scared," I tell him. "Of what?" "Of you. Of this. Of what I'm becoming." I lean forward, mostly of how much I don't want to leave. He stands and pulls me up with him. We're in the middle of a busy cafe, and he doesn't care who sees as he presses his forehead to mine, his hands cupped around my face. "Don't leave," he says simply. "Stay with me." It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You choose me, and I protect you. That's the entire equation. He kisses me then, and the cafe melts away. The morality melts away. Everything that's telling me to run melts away, replaced by the sensation of his hands in my hair and his mouth moving with mine, and the understanding that I've already made this choice. When we part, I'm trembling. "I need to go back to work," I say. "Not yet." He keeps his arm around me. "Come with me." He takes me to a penthouse on Park Avenue South, not his usual safe house, but something different, somewhere private, somewhere that smells like him, and expensive leather, and the kind of history that comes from old money. "Is this my family's property?" he confirms. "No one comes here. It's neutral space." He takes me to a bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and for the first time since this began, he makes love to me instead of claiming me. His hands are careful, his movements are deliberate. He takes his time, and somewhere in the middle of it, I realize that I've stopped fighting, that I've surrendered not just my body but something more fundamental, my ability to pretend I'm still the person I was before I met him. Afterward, we lie tangled together, and he traces patterns on my arm. "I love you," he says, and it sounds like a confession, like something he's not supposed to admit. That wasn't part of the plan. That's a complication. "What's the plan?" I ask. "To build something that lasts, with you, in my world, not outside of it. And if I can't?" His expression hardens slightly. "Then we're both destroyed. And that's not acceptable." It's the most honest declaration of possession he's ever made, and somehow it's more intimate than everything that came before. He's not promising safety or protection. He's promising that if I leave him, he'll burn down everything rather than live without me. That's not love, I tell myself. That's obsession. But I'm learning that the line between the two is a lot thinner than I thought. My phone buzzes on the nightstand, a text from Elena at the gallery. She's not happy that I left without finishing my shift. She wants to talk to me tomorrow morning. Something about policy violations and questions about my loyalty. Vittorio sees the text before I can hide it. How much do you tell her? He asks. Nothing. She's just suspicious. He gets out of bed and walks to the window, his naked body silhouetted against the city lights. He looks like a sculpture of power and danger, all controlled violence and unstoppable momentum. If Elena becomes a problem— Don't. I interrupt. Whatever you're about to say, don't. She's not a threat. She's just doing her job. Everyone's a threat until they're useful, he says flatly. And she's not useful. I'm out of bed and moving toward him before I fully process the decision. I wrap my arms around him from behind, press my forehead to his scarred back. I need her, I say. If she disappears, it looks suspicious. If I'm going to keep gathering information, she needs to trust me. He's silent for a long moment, and I'm terrified he's already made the decision to remove Elena from the equation. Okay, he finally says. We'll keep her. But if she becomes a liability, she won't. I don't know if I'm lying to him or to myself, but for now, the words are enough. We return to bed, and he holds me like he's afraid I'll disappear in the night. And I lie there, listening to the city outside the windows, understanding that I've stopped being a hostage and started being a choice, which might be worse. The email arrives on a Tuesday morning. At first, I don't recognize the address, but the attached files, financial records, shipping manifests, correspondence between Vittorio and other crime family leaders make it immediately clear what's happening. Someone is offering me everything I could use to destroy him. The message is brief. This is a one-time offer. Leave the city with what we've given you. It's enough to guarantee protection from anyone who moves against you. Or stay with Marchese and find out what happens when the feds get their hands of it. It's signed, a friend. My first instinct is to show Vittorio immediately. My second instinct is to delete it and pretend it never happened. My third instinct, the one that wins, is to do something I haven't done in weeks, think for myself. I'm sitting at my desk in the gallery's back office, pretending to count inventory, when Elena knocks on the door. We need to talk, she says, and her tone is grave. I delete the email before she sees the screen. About what? I ask, gesturing for her to sit. Elena is in her 50s, sharp-eyed, observant, good at her job. She's also been increasingly distant with me, which I attributed to Vittorio's plan to move me into a higher position. But looking at her face now, I see it's something more complicated. I got a call from someone claiming to represent the FBI, Elena says carefully. They asked questions about you, about your access to client files, your unusual schedule, the fact that you've had special permission to handle shipments to specific addresses. My heart stops. What did you tell them? The truth. That you're a good employee, that you have legitimate access to those files, and that I have no evidence of you doing anything illegal. She leans forward. But Julia, I need to know, are you in trouble? This is the moment where my life splinters, where I choose between the woman who's been nothing but kind to me and the man I've surrendered everything to. No, I lie. The FBI probably just wanted to verify that the files they're looking at are the same ones we maintain in the gallery. Routine verification. Elena nods, but she doesn't look convinced. If you ever need help, if you're in some kind of situation where you feel unsafe or like you're being coerced, I want you to know that I'm here, that there are people who can help. I want to tell her everything. I want to explain that I'm being held by the gravitational pull of a man who's made it clear that leaving him is not an option, that I've become complicit in a world I never wanted to be part of, that there's an email in my deleted files offering me a way out that would destroy everything I've built with him. Instead, I say, "Thank you, I'm fine." The moment Elena leaves, I call Vittorio. We meet in his car, a different one, a nondescript gray sedan that blends into the city. He doesn't ask what's wrong until we're moving, driving in a direction that doesn't seem to have a destination. The FBI contacted the gallery, I tell him. They asked Elena questions about me. His hands tighten on the steering wheel, but his voice remains calm. What exactly did they ask? About my access to files, about specific shipments. What did Elena tell them? That I have legitimate access and that she has no evidence of me doing anything illegal. He's quiet for a long moment. Then, "Pull over," he says. He navigates to a parking garage in Lower Manhattan and finds a spot on the lowest level, somewhere private and dark. The moment the car is stopped, he pulls me close. "You didn't tell them anything," he says. "It's not a question." "No." "And Elena?" "She was asking if I was in trouble, if I needed help." He understands immediately what that means. Elena is a threat now, not because she knows anything, but because she's asking questions that could eventually lead to answers that destroy both of us. Don't, I say, reading it in his face. Please. She didn't do anything wrong. Neither did the man in Red Hook, Vittorio says flatly. And he's dead. This is different. How? Because she showed me kindness. Because she deserves a life. I'm crying now, furious and terrified. You can't just kill everyone who gets in your way, Vittorio. At some point, the body count becomes a problem. The body count is never a problem, he says. It's the living people who talk that become problems. Then what are you going to do with me? I ask. Eventually, I'm going to become a problem too. He pulls back and looks at me, and I can see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The moment where he's weighing whether I'm worth keeping or worth removing. I don't know yet, he finally says. That's the terrifying part, Julia. For the first time in my life, I'm not certain about what I'm going to do, and I don't like uncertainty. He drives me back to my apartment, and he stays with me silent, watching the city from my tiny studio window, like he's planning the destruction of everything in it. Sometime around midnight, he gets a call. The conversation is brief, and in Italian, too fast for me to follow entirely, but I catch the words that matter. The FBI informant is eliminated. She won't be a problem. I don't ask if he's talking about Elena. I don't want to know. But when my phone buzzes the next morning with a news alert, gallery curator found dead in her apartment. Suspected overdose. Police investigating, I understand. He killed Elena. To protect me. To protect himself. To reinforce the lesson that there are no innocent parties in his world. And the worst part is that I'm not certain I want to leave anymore. That's when the second email arrives. This one is from the FBI directly. They have evidence. They want me to cooperate. They're offering witness protection and immunity. The offer expires in 48 hours. Vittorio is asleep in my bed when I read it. His face is peaceful in sleep, all the ruthlessness smoothed away, and he looks like a human being instead of a predator. I could do it. I could take the immunity. I could vanish and start over. But as I look at him sleeping, I understand that no matter how far I run, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder for gray eyes and the memory of hands that have touched me. Elena is dead because of me. Because I didn't warn her. Because I was too afraid of what Vittorio would do to my heart if I chose to save hers. I delete the email without responding. When Vittorio wakes up, he pulls me close, and we don't talk about what's happened or what it means. We just exist in the space between darkness and light, suspended in a world of our own making. I've made my choice, I realize. Not the one I wanted to make, but the one I can live with. For now, the Rizzo crew makes their move 3 weeks later. Vittorio is at a business dinner with the Russo family when the shooting starts. He gets the call while he's in the middle of discussing territorial disputes, excuses himself with the kind of control that makes everyone at the table understand that something important is happening, and by the time he's in his car, the nature of the attack is clear. They've taken me. I'm at his apartment, the penthouse on Park Avenue, when they come through the door. There are 4 of them, their guns raised, and for a moment, I think this is it. This is the moment where everything ends because I was stupid enough to believe Vittorio's promises of protection. But one of the shooters is Marco. Come with us, Marco says, and there's something in his expression that's almost apologetic. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Where? I ask, though I already know. We're being taken to use as leverage. We're being taken because the Rizzo crew has finally figured out that the fastest way to hurt Vittorio Marchese is to take away the one thing he's admitted he can't replace. They drive me to an abandoned warehouse in Sunset Park, the kind of place that's always abandoned, always waiting to be the scene of something terrible, the kind of place where people who know about these things come to die. There are guards, and there's Vincent Rizzo, a man I've only ever seen in photographs, aging and angry and desperate. The kind of desperation that comes from being slowly pushed out of power by men younger and more ruthless than you. Marchese will come, Rizzo says, studying me like I'm a work of art he's trying to evaluate. He won't have a choice. That's what happens when you let yourself love someone, Marchese. You give people leverage. He doesn't love me, I say, which is a lie, and also possibly the truth. I'm just useful. If you were just useful, he wouldn't have killed Elena Russo's cousin to protect you. He wouldn't have moved his entire operation 3 months ago to keep you safe. Rizzo sits down across from me. No, he loves you. And love is weakness. I don't know how long I'm in the warehouse. Hours, probably. They give me water but no food. They don't hurt me. which is worse because the anticipation of pain is almost as bad as the pain itself. And then Vittorio arrives. I've never seen him truly angry before. I've seen him cold, controlled, lethal, but this is different. This is rage, stripped down to its core, undeniable and destructive. He comes through the door with an army of his own men, and the warehouse fills with the kind of tension that precedes a war. Let her go, he says to Rizzo, and I'll let you walk out of this alive. You're not in a position to make offers, Rizzo says, but I can see the fear in his face. He's calling a bluff, and he knows he's calling a bluff, and he's doing it anyway, because he's run out of options. I'm always in a position to make offers, Vittorio says. I'm in a position to make offers because I'm the one with an army. You're the one with a woman you can't kill without losing all your leverage. He steps closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let her go, and then you're going to retire from this business. You and your family are going to liquidate your interests and disappear. Canada, Europe, I don't care where, but you're going to be gone by the end of the month. And if I refuse, then I'm going to kill everyone in this room except Julia. And then I'm going to burn your family's businesses to the ground. I'm going to take everything you've built and reduce it to ash. And your grandchildren will know that they lost their empire because their grandfather didn't know when to surrender. The silence that follows is absolute. Rizzo looks at his men, sees that they're not going to stand and fight for a losing battle, and something collapses in him. He's an old man, clinging to power that's already slipped away, trying to make one last move in a game he's already lost. Fine, he says. We're done. He nods to his men, and they lower their weapons. Vittorio does the same, though his eyes never stop tracking every movement in the warehouse. And then I'm being released, and Vittorio's pulling me into his arms, and I'm crying against his chest because relief is heavier than fear. I've got you, he whispers into my hair. You're safe. But we both know that's not true. We both know that safe is a myth, he tells me, because it's easier than admitting that the only safety that exists in this world is the safety that comes from being worth protecting. We leave Rizzo and his men to contemplate their extinction, and Vittorio drives me back to the penthouse. He takes me directly to the bathroom and fills the tub with hot water, washes my face and arms with careful hands, scrubbing away the evidence of the warehouse. In bed, he holds me like he's afraid I'll evaporate. This is my fault, he says into the darkness. I made you a target. I chose this, I tell him. I could have left 100 times. I didn't, because I didn't give you a choice. No, I say. Because you did. You were always offering me an exit. I just didn't want to take it. He's quiet for a long moment. The FBI contacted me directly. They said they made you an offer. Immunity. Witness protection. I stiffen. How did you? One of the agents is on my payroll, he told me immediately. He turns to face me. You deleted it without responding. Yes. Why? I don't have a good answer. I could tell him it's because I love him, but love feels too small for what this is. It's more like devotion, more like surrender. Because you're my choice, I finally say. Even knowing who you are, what you do, what you've done, you're my choice. He kisses me then, and it feels different from every kiss that came before. It feels like a vow, like a promise that even if the world burns around us, we're going to burn together. Marry me, he says, and it's not a question. Yes, I answer, because at this point, yes is the only word I still know. The wedding happens on a Tuesday, not in a church, because that would invite too many questions. Instead, Vittorio's uncle performs the ceremony in the penthouse, with Marco as witness and a judge who owes the family favors standing by with documentation. It's not the kind of wedding most girls dream about. But then again, I stopped being most girls the day Vittorio Marchese looked at me across a gallery floor. We exchange vows that mean everything and nothing, legal promises signed in blood and silence. He puts a ring on my finger, old gold, heavy, inscribed with his family crest, and tells me I belong to him now in every way that matters. I do, I say, and the words feel like I'm giving away the last piece of myself that was still mine to claim. That night, he makes love to me like he's trying to pour his entire world into my body, like he's trying to make sure that no matter what happens, I'll understand that he's marked me as his in the deepest way possible. For 2 weeks, we're happy. It's a strange kind of happiness built on violence and fear, and the understanding that it's all held together by threads that could snap at any moment, but it's happiness nonetheless. He takes me to restaurants where the other diners carefully avoid looking at us. He buys me clothes and jewels and the kind of things that come with the understanding that I'm an ornament, meant to display his wealth and power. He introduces me to his family, his uncle who runs the majority of the operations, his cousins who've been raised in this world since birth, Marco who I can see has never stopped resenting me, and I start to understand the structure of the empire he's built. It's not just crime, it's everything. Legitimate businesses bought with illegitimate money, real estate in every borough, political donations that guarantee protection from law enforcement, banks that launder money with the precision of a fine art. It's an entire world running parallel to the legal one, and everyone in it is complicit, including me. The realization hits me on a Tuesday, exactly 4 weeks after our wedding, when Vittorio's uncle calls me into his study. "I need your help with something," he says. And the way he says it makes clear that I don't have a choice. "What?" I ask. "The gallery. They're going to sell a Caravaggio next month. It's legitimate, all documentation is in order, but the buyer is someone we need to maintain close ties with. He's from the old country, connected. You're going to be the person who coordinates his access, who makes sure he feels welcomed and important, who reports back to us on any other buyers who might be interested in his collection. You want me to spy on him. I want you to be useful to the family," he corrects. "Just like you've been useful to Vittorio." I go to Vittorio and tell him what his uncle has asked. I expect him to refuse, to protect me from being pulled deeper into this world. Instead, he says, "Do it, Vittorio. Do it," he repeats. "You're not a decoration, Giulia. You're my wife. That means you're part of this family. That means you contribute." I don't want to contribute. I want out. The moment the words leave my mouth, I know I've made a mistake. His expression hardens into something that looks like contempt. "Too late for that," he says. "You made your choice when you married me. You made your choice when you deleted the FBI's offer. You made your choice when you stayed, instead of running." He stands and walks to the window, looking out at the city like it belongs to him. "The only way out is death, and I'm not ready to let you go." "This isn't love," I say, my voice shaking. "This is possession." "I know," he says, and he sounds tired. "That's what love is in this world. It's possession. It's holding on to something so tightly that you'd rather destroy it than let it go. It's making sure that the person you love can never leave, because leaving would mean losing you, and the thought of that is unbearable." I'm crying now, violent, angry tears that feel like they're coming from somewhere deep inside my chest. "You're going to ruin me," I say. "You're going to grind me down until there's nothing left." "Probably," he agrees. "But you'll still be alive, and you'll still be mine. And that's all I need." He turns and looks at me, and I see it then, the fracture in his armor. The place where I've gotten under his skin and lodged myself so deep that removing me would require removing a part of himself. "I love you," he says, and I believe him. "But I will hurt you if I have to. I will hurt everyone you care about if they become a threat." "That's not a promise, Giulia. That's a fact about who I am." I leave the penthouse and walk the streets of the city for hours, trying to find a version of myself that still exists somewhere in the rubble of who I've become. But with every block I walk, I understand that girl is gone. She died the moment I said yes to Vittorio's car that first night. Everything since then has just been pretending that she might still be rescued. By the time I return to the penthouse, I've made a decision. I'm going to do everything he asks. I'm going to become exactly what he wants, a beautiful, useful wife who never questions the empire her husband has built. Because the alternative is fighting him, and fighting him means destroying him, and destroying him means destroying myself. So I surrender completely, and in surrendering, I lose the last piece of myself that was still fighting to survive. Vittorio watches his wife come back to him broken and remade, and he understands that he's created exactly what he wanted, and also destroyed it in the process. She's beautiful now in a way that didn't exist before, untouched by anything resembling joy, hardened into something that won't crack anymore because cracking requires hope. He's ruined her. And the worst part is that he doesn't feel remorse. He feels proprietary. He feels like she's finally wholly his. "Are you happy?" she asks him one night, lying in their bed. "No," he says honestly. "I'm not capable of happiness, but I'm satisfied. And with you, I'm close enough to not needing the difference." She doesn't respond. She hasn't really spoken to him about anything that doesn't concern family business in 2 weeks. She's become what he trained her to be, a tool, a beautiful, efficient tool that doesn't ask questions or offer resistance. He should be satisfied. Instead, he finds himself wanting to shake her, wanting to see the girl who cried and fought and argued come back, wanting to know if he's broken her so thoroughly that she'll never recover. It's a new kind of addiction, the desire to break something you've already broken. The buyer arrives on a Wednesday, a man named Francesco from Sicily, connected to families that Vittorio's organization needs to maintain relationships with. I'm supposed to be gracious, supposed to facilitate his access to the Caravaggio, supposed to report back on his interests and vulnerabilities. What I'm not supposed to do is fall into conversation with him about the nature of captivity. It happens in the gallery during a private viewing that Vittorio is also attending, standing in the corner with Marco, watching everything with those gray eyes that miss nothing. Your husband is a powerful man, Francesco says to me, studying the painting with the focused attention of someone who actually understands art. Yes, I say. And you are happy with him? It's a question with layers. A question that's asking if I'm content or if I'm being held against my will. A question that, if answered correctly, could signal to Francesco that I'm a victim rather than a willing partner. I could answer it. I could send a signal. I could ask for help. No, I tell him. I'm not happy. But I'm his. And that's the only state of being I'm going to achieve now. Francesco nods, and the expression on his face suggests he understands perfectly, that he's seen this before, that he knows there are women in this world who are more like prisoners than wives, and that the best they can hope for is that their captors are gentle. The thought is so depressing that I excuse myself and spend the next hour in the bathroom, staring at my reflection and trying to recognize myself in the face looking back. That night, Vittorio brings me flowers, white roses, the kind that cost more than I used to make in a month, and he says, Francesco told me you were gracious, professional, everything a wife should be. Is that what I am? I ask. A wife? Or am I more like a possession you keep in the penthouse and bring out for important people? He sets down the flowers and takes my face in his hands. His thumbs trace my cheekbones with surprising gentleness. You're a wife, he says. Which is a different kind of possession. You're someone I chose. Someone I'm willing to burn everything down to keep, even though you don't trust me. Especially because I don't trust you. He kisses my forehead. Trust is a luxury we can't afford. But loyalty is something I can enforce. And you are loyal to me, Julia, even if you don't want to be. He's right, which is the most terrifying thing of all. I am loyal to him, not because I've chosen to be, but because the architecture of my life has been built in such a way that loyalty is the only response available to me. He's made himself into the only safe harbor in a storm he created. I want to show you something, he says, pulling me up. Something that's going to change how you understand what we are. He takes me to a room in the penthouse that I've never been in before, a study filled with files and photographs and documentation of every person who's betrayed him in the last 10 years. This is insurance, he tells me, running his finger along the files. This is proof of embezzlement from Marco, evidence of infidelity from my uncle, information about connections between the FBI and various members of my organization. This is the reason everyone remains loyal. Not because they love me, but because the cost of betrayal is so high that love becomes irrelevant. He pulls out a file with my name on it. And this is insurance against you, he says. Everything I have on your family. Your parents' business dealings, did you know they're involved in money laundering? Your brother, he's working with the Colombo crew without your knowledge. Your sister has a gambling problem that's made her vulnerable to very dangerous people. He sets down the file. I'm telling you this so you understand that if you ever tried to leave me, I wouldn't just destroy you. I'd destroy everyone you love. And they wouldn't even know why it was happening. They'd just be erased. And you'd have to live with the knowledge that it was because of a choice you made. I stare at the file, understanding that he's not threatening me. He's explaining the invisible cage that's been constructed around not just me, but everyone I've ever cared about. Do you understand now? He asks. I nod, because there's no other response available. Good, he says, and he sets the file down and pulls me into his arms. Because I need you to know that the only safe place in this world is with me. The only way to protect yourself and your family is to be exactly what I need you to be, and I think you're finally starting to understand that. We make love that night, and it's the first time since our wedding that I'm not resisting. I surrender completely, not out of desire, but out of the understanding that this is what I have now. This is the world I'm going to inhabit. This man is the only God that exists anymore. And as his hands move over my body, as he whispers promises and threats into my skin, I feel something shift inside me. The final piece of my resistance crumbles, and what remains is something else entirely. Not love, but acceptance. And acceptance, I'm learning, is a form of peace dark and terrible and permanent. 6 months into our marriage, the FBI arrests me. They come to the penthouse on a Tuesday morning, a team of federal agents with a warrant that cites my involvement in Vittorio's operations as sufficient grounds for charges that carry a life sentence. They're precise and professional, and they apologize the entire time they're putting handcuffs on my wrists. Vittorio watches from the window as they take me away. He doesn't fight. He doesn't resist. He just stands there with his hands in his pockets, watching his wife being loaded into a government vehicle like she's the most interesting thing he's ever seen. I learn later that the arrest is part of a deal. One of his cousins, desperate to save himself from racketeering charges, agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. The cousin provided enough evidence against me to ensure my arrest, and the FBI calculated that using me as leverage against Vittorio would be more effective than trying to prosecute him directly. They give me a choice in the interrogation room: cooperate and receive immunity, or face charges that will ensure I spend the next 30 years in federal prison. You see, the lead agent says, showing me photographs of Vittorio at restaurants, at meetings, at the penthouse. We have evidence of his involvement in everything, but you're the closest person to him. You've been inside his operations. You know how they work. You can bring him down. I could. I should. This is the exact moment I've been waiting for, the moment where I can escape and destroy him simultaneously. But as I look at the photographs of his face, his gray eyes looking at me across a table, his hand reaching for mine in a car, I realize something important. He did this. He orchestrated this. The cousin who testified, Vittorio, probably had a hand in that. The timing of the arrest too convenient. The choice they're offering me too perfectly designed to break me. He's burned down his own empire to prove a point. When the agent leaves the room, I ask to call my lawyer. I want a deal, I tell him through the phone. I want immunity and witness protection, but I need it in writing before I say anything. The next day, I'm in a federal courtroom testifying against Vittorio Marchese. I describe his operations. I detail the murders. I provide evidence of his connections to politicians and judges. I watch as the prosecution uses everything I tell them to construct an airtight case. He sits at the defendant's table wearing the same dark suit he wore the day he picked me up from the gallery, and he watches me while I destroy him. His gray eyes never leave my face, and there's no anger in them. There's just satisfaction. After they sentence him to 40 years, I'm in the courthouse hallway when Marco finds me. He wanted you to do it, Marco says, and he sounds almost admiring. He orchestrated the entire thing. He made sure his cousin would break. He made sure you'd be arrested. He made sure you'd be offered immunity. He wanted to prove that you'd choose yourself over him. Why would he want that? I ask. Because he needed you to survive, Marco says simply. He needed to know that even when destroying him was the only way to save yourself, you'd still choose to do it. He needed proof that you had enough left of yourself, enough independence, enough will to survive, that you're not entirely destroyed. I understand then what Vittorio has done. He's given me back my freedom, not by releasing me, but by forcing me to take it. He's burned down his empire and accepted his exile, so that I would have the proof that I wasn't entirely owned by him. It's the most destructive act of love I've ever witnessed. In witness protection, I'm given a new name, Margaret Sullivan. I'm given an apartment in Portland and a job at a nonprofit art organization. I'm given a life that doesn't belong to the Marchese family or any crime family at all. But on the eve of my new life, I do something I know is dangerous. I write him a letter. I understand what you did. I understand why you did it. And I hate you for it. Because now I have to live knowing that the man I destroyed is the only one who ever actually loved me. Not for what I could do for him. Not for my utility. But for my ability to choose. For my independence. For my will to survive, even when that survival meant his destruction. I don't sign it with my new name. I sign it with the one he gave me. Julia. I never get a response. But sometimes, late at night in my apartment in Portland, I wonder if he's reading it in a federal prison cell, understanding that I've finally understood him, that I've finally seen past the darkness and the violence to the broken person underneath. Love in his world isn't about happiness. It's about possession that's willing to release its object if that release is what saves them. It's about power that's willing to surrender itself, if surrender is what proves the reality of connection. It's not healthy. It's not normal. It's not anything that could exist in a world with different rules. But in his world, in the dark spaces where power consolidates and empires crumble, it was all he had to offer. And somehow, impossibly, it was enough. Years later, when I'm safe and new and rebuilt into something that vaguely resembles the person I was before Vittorio Marchese looked at me across a gallery floor, I'll think about him. I'll think about his hands, his eyes, his absolute certainty that the only way to love me was to own me completely and then set me free. And I'll understand that I spent a year in captivity to someone who was teaching me, through violence and obsession and the most complicated form of devotion I've ever known, that the only love worth having is the kind that's willing to burn down the world to protect the person it loves, even if that protection means their freedom, especially then,